Alright, so bad guy, I'm gonna get you. Ah, my friend! Oh, did I die again? What's good, fellas? Today we're going to be taking a look at a very strange character. He used many strange tools to get the job done, and he had a big weapon that was a bit silly for his size. He also had a taunt that was useful. Before talking about this character, we need to talk about the game itself that will bring us right into being Guilty Gear Accent Core XX Plus R.
It's all coming up, buddy!
Plus R is a very cool adaptation of a classic Guilty Gear that came with rollback and obviously try to rebalance some of the game's issues. And also bringing back some of the classic colours from those editions as well. The roster is also vast with so many new faces that came to this edition of the game and many returning ones that you may recognise. And then there's some that we want to stay in the pits of hell. Fuck off, Zappa. Characters also had different variants, giving them new tools, sometimes new playstyles, and just, you know, gave you that boss energy. It was really cool and fun. You had to complete the story though, which was the arcade mode, and for some people, but for others, it allows you to experiment a bit more with this game that has been very, very unexperimented with. Fun game, but the mechanics got even better. It's a 5-button fighter using the buttons that you'll recognize, like punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, and of course, Dust being a brand new one from Missing Link. Again, Dust wasn't really its own button, you had to combine two buttons to gain the Dust outcome, but now it's its own button coming with sweep and the overhead, the funny thing that you do recognise now. A new thing that was also introduced to this Guilty Gear was roaming cancels. That's right, you finally got roaming cancels being the blue and the red. Red meant that you did it, and blue meant that you did it with a cool timing, specifically with a move, and only used 25 instead of the 50. The end still had the slowdown, but it was very cool because you were able to get creative with some yourselves. There were combos that you could do now, there was block strings that you can do now. It was very interesting to have fun with and experiment. And then Burst also made its appearance, letting you go for blue to get off me, and a gold to get more offense going as you got an instant 100 meter. That's about everything you need to know for now. Obviously the combos are still freeform, the game is fun, and it's obviously got all of its intricate mechanics that you need to learn, but that's everything you need to know. It's time for the man himself, the geezer with the cleaver, Kliff Undersn. But Kliff himself, he entered the roster with Missing Link, but made his return in the later versions of Accent Core XX. Not too sure what version he showed up in, but we're going to be talking about the Plus R version, as that's the one that you can play online and have a good time with. In this story, he unfortunately died in this entrant, but this entrant was to give you more details between him and Justice, as they used to be old friends turned rivals. As you know, Justice became the big bad of the first game, and they wanted to give you just a wee bit more backstory about how they knew each other, but there's not a ton there. He was also brought in to teach Saul and Kai how to fight during the Holy Order War. However, Saul was all like, I've got better things to do, and Kai was all like, I've also got better things to do, but I'm more polite about it. Leaving Kliff as a bit of a teacher who never really taught. He got really pissed off with Saul as soon as he took his sword. Most don't know how strong he was back in his good old days. He used to slay dragons. He was a monster hunter, if you will. And he used to slay them with this messed up knife. This is a cleaver, but this is just a knife, right? This is just a huge, comically large knife. Back in his youth, with this comically large knife, he just wanted to end the war and bring peace to the world. And that did happen for the unfortunate cause of his death. Now looking at him, you may think to yourself, how the hell does he fight? He fights pretty hard. He is a rushdown bruiser that wants to get in your face and hit hard. He can maneuver about with the knife, jump about and use it to attack, as it's very maneuverable and allows him to stab for a lot of damage. It's a mechanic that's also very self-hearting, but we'll get into depth with that later because that is the most unique thing about him for sure. He has all forms of reach on his fireballs and pokes, however nothing too insane as he was built to be stubby unless he was committed. With the right attack he was a damage king for sure, but it was all about aligning the stars and the moon. And his instant kill wasn't good as it took too much setup, but it was a pretty cool animation. It shows how he slayed the dragon as he took out Hydra himself. And during some of his attacks he could just go back to his prime for a few seconds. Yeah, you could just do that, back to his youth. Goes back to a strong lad, that's it. We're done yapping about the character stuff, let's get into the specifics of the nitty and gritty of his toolkit. Kliff is your bog standard rushdown, has to get in, has to run offense, and a lot of his normals are stubby, but there are some that make up for it and are quite surprising. For example, most of his air airs are massive. Sure, they've also got a hurt box, but they've also got a hitbox, meaning in those situations, he's more likely to clip you than you are to clip him. He has some really good evasion on his special here, lets him leap over his opponent for an overhead cross up, but it does come out at 28 frames, so it is reactable. But with meter and RC, not something that you want to block, that's for sure. And his forward dash actually made him very low to the ground. Look at that, he is like really low. You're not hitting him with a far slash or 5H that easily. His offense had many Haoki traps as well. For example, the leapfrog was a very good meaty tool in specific matchups as he allowed to go left, right and get in the opponent's head. But if you go between that and his fireball, which is +3 on block, it allows for some nasty meaty scenarios where he just gets to keep putting on pressure and putting the opponent in frame traps where they constantly have to guess. Mix that with his combo game. Yeah, no, he was killing you without a doubt because he had some of the highest damage setups, of course, next to the big bodies, where if he can manage to land that hit, it isn't a simple hit you're taking. That's a big chunky amount of your life gone. Mix that with his 5D, which looks like a normal 5D, except he hops during it, so during that point you can't hit him with lows. Every 2k will whiff. During the startup of his animation, when he's crouching here, this is not him crouching. This is actually his crouch animation, but his 5D uses that in the first 14 frames of the startup, and then he'll hop and do an overhead. Technically meaning, this is a unreactable overhead that comes out in 14 frames. It leads to a ton of damage as it's a charged 5D. That's nasty. That's genuinely nasty. That's some fast stuff for an old fella, right? He had charged normals as well, which is pretty cool. Let them affect his combo game to a good degree, and meaty tools became a little bit more scary or block. And I know you're thinking, this isn't that unique, but if you really think about it, look at the roster of Accent Core. Not many of them can charge their normals. This is a very rare thing to have. But Kliff could charge his 6P, his 6H, and his 2H. You wouldn't see a lot of the full charge on these, but 6H would certainly do it for a combo tool. And 6P fully charged was a disgusting anti-air call out that did a lot of damage if fully charged. It was a bit, but by god, if he made that bit, your health had to disappear, or you used burst, but either or, something was going. It's just a neat thing that you wouldn't expect a rushdown to have. That just goes without saying. A basic rushdown with confirms and all sorts of quick get-in tools, kind of what you'd expect. So you're sat there and you're thinking to yourself, what makes him odd? Well, he's old as shit! You do not want this guy to get hit. He has the easiest dizzy in all of the game, and all the characters you have to work to a certain point to get a dizzy. For him, it's literally 2 small combos, and that man is my back! So genuinely, 2 small back-to-back combos could cost you losing the game. You don't want to get hit as this rushdown. And then this also played into his next mechanic. He has this unique mechanic where he'll spot dodge the opponent for 46 frames. You cannot hit him for 46 frames. This is a really good tool. And at any times, he can cancel out with a punch where he goes bokeh and chops you. It's got invincibility for 4 frames, but overall this is actually a pretty good tool for evading strikes and possibly trying to get in and using it on defense. However, like I said, you don't want him to get hit. Why is this? Well, he has an RNG stun mechanic on this spot dodge. If he's a certain stun, an RNG will roll numbers, and if it kicks in, he'll take a moment and go like, my back! And just like that, this guy can't do anything. He is in a punishable state for quite the bit. So spot dodging as this guy was risky because you want to use this on defense. If you're using it on defense, that means you've already been hit a bunch. And that means your back's gonna break a lot. A great tool for sure, but if you get hit in the back enough times, oh my goodness, this poor old man is going to die. What else makes him up? That wasn't good enough for you? I see. You wanna see some wacky shit? Alright, how about I offer you Bakamon. Kliff's taunt is actually a useful neutral projectile tool. It's useful because it doesn't go away on hit, lasts quite the while, and gives Kliff a combo with the hits. This is a fantastic tool. Not only does it let you have neutral presence, not only does it give you Oki setups, not only does it just give you a way to get in, but it's all done from pressing the taunt button. Meaning, You don't have any difficult inputs to do. You just have to press taunt. Don't get me wrong, it does have a long startup, so you have to find your moments to use it. And then there's also the other thing, because it is a taunt, you're going to give your opponent meter. So you couldn't just throw this out willy-nilly, because if you did taunt into taunt, he isn't going to do it a second time. That's the other funny thing. You have to also be careful because your opponent would build up enough meter, potentially RC or super on you. And now you had to think about that. It was a god tool for sure, but you had to be smart on its usage. His supers were also neat as it allowed Kliff to regain his youth and go back to his prime. One is a very sick as hell fireball where if he gets in the right angle and the right specifics in a combo or a fresh hit, he gets a really cool combo to work from. And his other super is just playing Russian roulette with a loaded double-barreled shotgun. When he does this, the hits are kinda RNG based depending on how far away they'll send the opponent flying on the hits. You want to use this as a defensive tool? Not a bad idea. You want to use this as a combo tool? Not a bad idea. But the RNG could be blessing you and you'll nuke the hell out of your opponent, or RNG gods will hate you and will give you nothing but trumpets, because in this case, it'll send the opponent flying away and they're able to come back and punish you on hit. Not exactly the Russian roulette you want to play, right? And as we know, when Kliff is unsafe, he is absurdly unsafe. This will be a big combo you'll take. Your stun meter is high, you try to dodge on defense, you get the idea. With all of this noted, Kliff's biggest issue was that he was a rushdown, so fighting zoners was difficult. The only set play you had to cover you was taunt, and as we know that's a long star up, and everything that you had were stubby unless you got in. This meant on the tier list he wasn't really a consistent character, and who saw that coming when his taunt gave the opponent meter and he had an RNG spot dodge. You'll usually see Kliff right in the middle of the tier list, either in mid tier or slightly high tier. Nowhere egregious, nobody thinks he's top tier, nobody thinks he's low tier. Everyone's like, be careful about this fella, because he could get you. Character's totally viable and totally playable in tournaments, but you have to be careful about bad matchups. Well, time for the question. Who made him work?
Yeah, that was really good. He's not trying to...
G-Dom was a fantastic player who really rocked it with the Kliff. Watching him, you can see he understands the playstyle of the character to such a high degree, and he's very used to the way the character functions, which, you know what, good for him, very old game, and I'm happy he's able to perform very well in such a difficult environment. Kliff was odd due to the fact that he had an RNG spot dodge, a ton, and many fun visual mechanics that you wouldn't really see with many other characters. Kliff is very unique, and I would like to come back to Strive, but I don't think they would do him enough justice in terms of the toolkit. I think they miss out on a lot that makes him funny or interesting. Well, that's the end of today's videos, fellas, and if you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. I really enjoyed working on this odd, as I've been getting really into Guilty Gear, and Kliff really just screamed at me for the next odd. And I'll ask you guys, what do you want to see next for either grab or odd? What character comes to your mind? Who's a silly Billy or who's a massive grappler? Nothing lands as hard as a silly Billy. And be sure to check out the membership system. As always, thanks to the usuals that usually do it. Make sure to like and hype, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!